And now, the world at war. As the Great War rages on, the coalition of Germany, England, Czechoslovakia, and Sweden take on the forces of Russia, France, and Austria-Hungary over the rights to Poland. The former nations assert that Poland should be a sovereign nation and no longer be under Russian rule. The latter disagrees. Meanwhile, in the southern hemisphere, the great nation of Chile enjoys continued success after their conquest of Argentina and the recent annexation of the Hawaiian Islands. When asked why they chose to move into the Pacific, the leader simply stated, "We need to keep an eye on those bastards to the west." Over in Africa, the Ottoman Empire has expanded greatly into the mainland and is spreading their socialist ideals onto the continent, although there have been rumors of them possibly butting heads with the neighboring Sokoto, which was conquered by the great nation of Texas earlier in the year. The final piece of news comes out of the Orient, as the Belgian Empire has once again aggressively expanded onto the Chinese mainland. With their brutal acquisition of Tibet, brilliant conquest of Japan's southern coast, and skillful annexation of multiple Filipino islands, they truly have lived up to the motto of, "The sun never sets on the Belgian Empire." That's all the time we have for today, folks. Tune in next week for another exciting edition of The World at War. Everything I just said can realistically occur during a single game of Victoria 2. This was a game that I'd seen on Steam multiple times while lurking the store, but I could never quite pull the trigger. Honestly, it just seemed a bit too complex, and I didn't want to have to learn an entire new game system. But a couple of months ago, I saw that Victoria 2 was on sale, and yoink! And I gotta tell ya, that was some of the best $5 I've ever spent. I kid you not, over the past 2 months, I have put over 200 hours into this game. It's a wonder I get anything done. Who am I kidding? I don't get anything done. So, without further ado, let's break this game down. This game begins in 1836 and ends in 1936. Right off the bat, you get to pick your nation. And you get to pick virtually any nation in the world. I am dead serious. You could be the United Kingdom, France, Portugal, Spain, the United States of Central America, look it up, Tripoli, Afghanistan, Texas, or even Hawaii. Although if you do decide to play as Hawaii like I did, you're gonna get annexed real quick. Damn Manifest Destiny. What gets even more fun about choosing nations is that if you just so happen to control another country, you can choose to release them and play the rest of the game as your former subject. For example, you can choose to release Bulgaria from the Ottoman Empire. You can ensure that Austria and Hungary end up as separate nations rather than becoming the historical dual monarchy, and you can even release New England from the United States, or if you're feeling really wild, reforming the Heavenly Kingdom from China. So aside from screwing around with history, what else is there to do? Well, this game is run very similar to many RTS titles. You have technology trees which are dependent upon whether or not your nation is civilized, and is increased depending on the literacy of the masses. But be careful what you wish for. The smarter your subjects are, the less bullshit they'll be willing to put up with. Which means you'll need to keep an eye on your policies and the demands of the masses. If you don't, they'll rebel. Now if they overthrow your government, well, surprisingly, the game doesn't end for you. You just have to give in to their demands. Fair enough. And pro tip. The later into the 20th century the game gets, the more bullshit you'll have to deal with from these clowns. On the bright side, communism does come with some sick flags. Your nation's ranking is dependent upon 3 factors: prestige, industry, and military might. Industry is created either by building factories yourself and ensuring that the state seizes the means of production, or just by encouraging capitalism so you don't have to do any of the work. This is the main reason I don't care for communism in this game, truth be told. Prestige is acquired either by completing events unique to your nation, such as creating Germany out of the insane amount of German states at the beginning of the game, random events, or by acquiring land. Now, if you understand the basic principles of realpolitik, you'll know that to run a successful empire, your goals should be to gain power, hold power, and prevent others from gaining power themselves. Step 1. Gain power. If you have more military might than another nation, you can very easily create a justification for war and take their land. Just keep in mind that the more you go to war, the more infamy you acquire. And unlike the Civ games, infamy will ruin you. If your infamy score raises above 25, every single nation gains a war justification against you under the guise of containment. Even better, truces only last 5 years, so if a nation declares war on you, wins, and in 5 years your infamy still hasn't dropped below 25, they can declare war on you again for the exact same reason. And this will be after you've been paying them a quarter of your income and have disbanded half of your military, along with having limits put on your military might. Yeah, don't let that happen. But in all honesty, I totally play this game like a massive bully. If you have a decent-sized population and invest heavily enough in your military, any nation that has not westernized will not stand a chance. Which is why I have a game in which the southern coast of China is the property of the Ottoman Empire. Step 2. Hold power. I've went over this briefly, but if you can't keep your subjects happy, you will have many rebellions on your hands. Now, if these rebels want to change your government structure, then the worst that can happen is you may suddenly go from being a nationalist monarchy to a liberal democracy. Damn French Revolution. Alternatively, if these rebels want, say, their country freed from your control and you can't stop them, well, let's hope you don't fall into a perpetual spiral of losing your empire. Nothing ever changes. Just the names. If you attain great power status, then you get to throw your weight around in the form of your sphere of influence. If you can get neighboring countries inside of this sphere, then they become protected by you, meaning other countries probably won't get any ideas about invading them. This also has the bonus of purchasing goods from these countries without tariffs, along with increasing your prestige. Just keep an eye out for the other great powers, as they will use many underhanded tactics to remove a country from your sphere and add it to theirs. Thankfully, you can use these tactics right back. Step 3. Prevent others from gaining power. So here's one of my favorite tricks in this game. I will go to war with a competing nation, and instead of demanding their land or forcing them to disband troops, I will demand that they release a nation under their control. For example, I was playing as Austria-Hungary, and I decided that Germany was getting a little too big for their britches. So I went to my allies, and we all went to war against them. The justification was for Germany, formerly Prussia, to relinquish control of Lithuania. Now, why would I do this? Out of the kindness of my heart? Ha, don't be silly. With Lithuania being their own sovereign nation, that would mean that Germany would have less land, resources, prestige, and most importantly, population. Not to mention, it would gain me an extra ally if I ever went to war again. Now you're thinking with portals. I could go on and on with my war stories, as I've been doing with my friends on Discord, but really, if you're at all interested in the formation of our modern empires, or just military history in general, then I would highly recommend Victoria 2. Although I will say, if you do pick up this game, then you really should pick up the 2 major DLCs. Those being A House Divided, which smooths out the gameplay and gives you a campaign of the American Civil War, and Heart of Darkness, which smooths out the gameplay even more, and also revamps the colonization system. I'll be honest, I had no clue how colonization was even supposed to work in the vanilla version. So, whether marching through Georgia or scrambling for Africa, Victoria 2 will ensure that you'll find thousands of unique ways to create an empire that will stand the test of time. Vini, Vidi, Vici.